I'm not a doctor. Neither is the coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. But we're going to talk about that team right now. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and did you know that one of the members of the Giannoskians does footy trick shot videos on TikTok? I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We're free. We're available on all platforms. Double bang it, thumb it, comment. Great. Next week, I'm just going to double check this actually as I start to talk, because I'm pretty sure this is the last show that I'm doing this week. Maybe I'm wrong. But next week, we will do another mock draft. Actually, I'm not sure. Yeah, we'll do a mock draft. We'll do a big board, which is different to the mock draft. But I'm also going to have a draft analyst on, not for deep dive prospects, but he looked at my big board. And he's going to tell me the 5 that he thinks I'm wrong on the most. We're going to fight about it. I'm going to win, but we're going to fight about it. So he's looking over my big board and telling me why I'm dumb. And then we'll go from there. So that's something coming up next week. And then we'll go through the other 8 teams left in the season review. I was also being serious about the thing about the Giannoskians. His actually videos are really good. Sharpshooter Luke. I didn't even know. That's who it was. I don't know if you even remember the Giannoskians. But Luke's dropping some pretty interesting footy content. I enjoy it. Shout out to you, Luke, if you're watching. All right. We're here to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. Every year, almost without fail, I hate this team for fantasy. I hate it. There's always something. When it was Mike Budenholzer coaching, it was like, it's the same every year. It's the same guys. The bench means nothing. There's nothing going on. Then we get some interest. Budenholzer's gone. New coach. Damian Lillard's there. And then we get annoyed at what's happening with the team that way. And then Dr. Rivers comes in and the young guys all get minimized. Even when there's even a sniff of a young player being marginally interesting. They're just boring. They continue to be boring. And they annoy me. And I wish I could get over that, because there's great... I can get over it. I can talk about them rationally. Maybe. But they're just one of the most annoying teams from a fantasy point of view to talk about. I don't know if you find it that way, if you are a fantasy analyst or someone who pays a lot of attention to fantasy basketball, you're a Bucks fan. It's just, they're annoying. They're just annoying to talk about. Do you think that I think they're annoying? I do. Let's look at this squad. It is hard to judge so much about this team. Not only did they make a complete mess of the hiring, they changed the head coach hiring with Adrian Griffin coming in. They changed their structure of their team by moving on from Drew Holiday and Grayson Allen, bringing in Damian Lillard, the mid-season white anting from Doc Rivers to take over as coach. And then Khris Middleton's injured again, in and out of the lineup. And then at the end of the year, Giannis is hurt and they lose in the first round. But when they were all sort of healthy, they cooked. So what the hell does it mean? I don't know if we can take anything out of it apart from Doc Rivers is still annoying. Bus underthrow legend Doc Rivers. But what do I take out of this? They were 49-33 with a plus 2.7 net rating. They're the 6th best offense and the 19th best defense, and their defense obviously changed when you move on from All-NBA defender Drew Holiday to Damian Lillard. The schemes change. Adrian Griffin said, right, I've seen what you guys have had success with. We're doing something different. And then after about 5 games, the team said, absolutely not, Griff. What are we doing here? And they changed it back, and some of their... And then to give credit to the medical fraternity and one of their professionals in Dr. Rivers, they did clean up a lot of their defensive stuff when he took over. A lot of the transition stuff, which sucked. They did improve, but yeah, Doc always has the Doc problems. They had a preseason over-under of 54.5. Safe to say they didn't get there. And I was I was off on them. I had them at 58 and 24. My initial projection. When I made an adjustment heading into the year, I put them at 54. So I did drop them down to just sneak under the under. Of course, I didn't get what they actually was, which was what they were as a 49-win team. But I did sneak under that under to get to a 54, but yeah, not particularly confidently. In the draft, they do have 2 picks. They had to do a swap with the Pelicans, so yeah, they're 21st in this order, but they're picking 23, them and the Pelicans swap. They also got pick 33, which very clearly is not their pick. It is the Blazers' second-round pick. What trade is this in? Portland, Sacramento, Bazemore, and Ariza deal, and then the DiVincenzo Bagley deal. Oh, yeah, so who knows? They've got it. They've got that pick, 22 and 33. Are they going to get something good out of it? It honestly doesn't matter because Doc won't play them, so it doesn't matter. Again, it just does not matter. Don't know what happened with that lineup, but maybe we'll go back and adjust that. So let's look at their lineups. Their most common starters is the group that you think it is. It's Damian Lillard, Malik Beasley, Khris Middleton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Brook Lopez. Remember when Giannis came into the league and everybody I say everybody, but obviously not everybody, but a lot of people just like, I can't say this guy's name. There's no way. So we'll call him Alphabet, which is just a terrible name. Greek Freak. And now it feels like you don't get as many people mispronouncing Giannis. You'll still get the Giannis people. You still get some of them. But is it because they've bothered to learn how to say it? Or is it because he's so good now that you can just call him Giannis and get away with it? Might be the latter. Anyway, that was their most common starting group. It wasn't their best lineup, which their best lineup had an incredible plus 32.4 net rating. It was Lillard, it was Beasley, it was Giannis. But also it had point guard legend Pat Connaughton and all-defense legend Bobby Portis in that group. That was a plus 32.4. Interesting, there's no Middleton or Brook Lopez. I wouldn't say that that's a lineup that you need to use more of necessarily, but it is interesting to see how successful it was having just way more offense with Portis there and Giannis doing more of the defensive stuff, that it did work out successfully. In terms of their free agents, the restricted guys, I don't believe there's actually anybody on the restricted list. I'm just going to go and double check that. I think it's only it's only Ty Washington that's restricted, and the graphic didn't actually come up and work there because I'm having technical difficulties for some reason. But when we look at the unrestricted list, we do have that list working because now it's important. Malik Beasley signed on a minimum. He's an unrestricted free agent. Pat Beverley came across after the trade deadline. Traded for Cameron Payne. Jay Crowder, who was traded for they traded 5 second-round picks the year before to get him. He sucked. And then this season he was okay, but still Jay Crowder. The Italian cock, Danilo Gallinari, is an unrestricted free agent who came after a buyout. And then Achilles tear legend Giannis Antetokounmpo is an unrestricted free agent. You can clown on Thanasis as much as you want. He's not coming back, surely. He's a corner to kill. He's not going to play, and he shouldn't be on the team anyway, but he's done. But all these veterans that, the Bucks love doing and Doc Rivers loves doing, the Beverleys, the Crowders, Gallinaris, do they come back? Are they going to have anyone else going after them? Is the salary going to make sense? Beasley, surely he's able to get more than a minimum contract somewhere, even though there were struggles. And I think the Bucks will have some issues retaining him, because obviously when you sign on a minimum deal, you don't have the advantage of bird rights to bring back on a higher salary. So that's going to be one to watch. Will he find those other offers? I don't know. That is a tough one, and I don't think it's really spoken about very much at all. We talk about the fact that the Knicks are limited in what they can pay to bring back Isaiah Hartenstein. We've talked in the past about issues the Lakers have had with situations like that, but I don't really remember anyone talking about Malik Beasley being in that same boat, but he is. Got 2 guys with non-guaranteed deals, AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr. I'd imagine that both of those guys and their contracts get guaranteed, but again, probably not going to matter a huge amount because the Doc's not going to play. Not going to play many of them. And then lastly, what is really intriguing is that does this set the tenor for this season? Because look at the players who can become unrestricted free agents after next season. Brook Lopez, fully unrestricted. James Christian Middleton has a player option that makes him unrestricted. And Punch Bob Ship like Bobby Portis has a player option that makes him unrestricted. There's also Pat Connaughton, who can be unrestricted. Now, it's not to say that all those guys are definitely going to leave, but it puts pressure on the organization that they can. It puts pressure on the organization that if all those guys leave, they're into problems with how do you replace them, and then what does it do with Giannis? Where does Giannis want to be? Does he say, like, it's not working, guys, can you move on? That is a real pivotal thing. You've got Rivers under contract for 3 more seasons. You've got Lopez, Middleton, Portis, Connaughton all coming out of contract, or potentially at the end of next season. Lillard, obviously, like everyone, is a year older, but a year further away from his prime. And, of course, the big news of Ryan Rollins and Jalen Galloway being restricted free agents. But that is something that does make this a very intriguing season coming up for your Milwaukee Bucks. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app now with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun and the most exciting way to get in on the action, watching your favorite sports and players. You pick more or less on at least two individual player stat projections. That's it. Bang them into an entry and you're done. And actually, you can win up to 100 times cash at this point. So $10 in can turn into 1,000. There's always action on PrizePicks, and it's the perfect time now to try something new with the end of the NBA season. So we've got other things going on PrizePicks like esports. So every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your esports lineup does not win, you get your entry fee back. You can choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. Put that $10 in, you can turn into 1,000, pick 2 to 6 individual entries, and you are set. So go and download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today, use the code LOCKEDONNBA, first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Okay, so let's take a look at the individual players now on the Bucks. Let's take a look at these starters and let's see if there's any sort of information that we can get out of this. I hope so. Yanni, first guy we're going to look at. Antetokounmpo's always an interesting player in a fantasy perspective. He's 29. We know he missed the playoffs with that, what looked pretty serious calf injury, and wasn't really close. It didn't seem like to coming back. He still played 73 regular season games. They were less cautious with his ongoing deteriorating knee problem. Did that lead to the calf blowing out? Who's to say? 35 minutes a game is a lot. We are definitely, if we're not already there, we are getting into the era of worrying about Giannis's injury problems, lower body. Not to the level of Embiid, but with an ongoing persistent degenerative knee, this calf issue, which blew out, there are some real problems mounting. Yanni was the 6th ranked player in -1. Always worth remembering that the Yahoo rankings will tell you that he's significantly worse than he is. They've got him at 28th, which is a far call from where he was ranked 70 spots behind DeLon Wright last season. Because he did improve a lot of things. But we know what Giannis is going to do. He's not going to hit threes. He's not going to hit free throws. And he's going to do those, or he's going to miss free throws at big volume, which makes him look bad. But he isn't, very clearly. He averaged 30 points with 11.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists, 1.2 steals, 1.1 blocks on 61% shooting. They are all fantastic numbers. Yes, only half a three. Yes, 66 from the line. Which, again, is not terrible, but his volume it is. He hit 27% on his threes, but we know what Giannis is. At some point, these scoring numbers will fall away. We're not there yet. We're probably 3 to 4 years away from a significant decline there. But the thing that has been quite up and down from Giannis is the defensive stats. Now, we could easily make an argument that the arrival of Damian Lillard took some of the offensive responsibility back away from Giannis, which had spiked the year before because there was no Lillard, but there was also no Khris Middleton. And he did way more stuff offensively, and the defense fell away. This season, his offense went down. Even though he still scored 30 points, his offensive responsibilities went down, and the defense came back up. That's a positive sign. The best comps for Giannis, Karl Malone year 9 and Tim Duncan year 10. So we're talking like elite Hall of Fame players, which is, of course, what Giannis is. He was 4th in points leagues. He will be a top 5 player again in fantasy for points leagues. Will he go? He will probably go in the top 5 in category leagues. I'm not sure that I would. And in Roto, I almost definitely wouldn't. But I have that 28th on Yahoo is obviously not representative of what he is as a player. So he's a very clear first-round guy. He probably should go to me in the 5 to 8 range. Yes, you have to have a very strong structure or different type of team build, but I also have proven, and I did this last season too, and I'll probably do it again this upcoming season. You can still win free throws with Giannis in your team. You can. You don't have to. It's probably not the best use of your resources, but you can do it. It's not a complete write-off there. And even if you do lose free throws each week, it does not matter. It doesn't matter in a head-to-head league. You can adjust for that. 99th percentile EPM, 100th in crafted. Look, he was great. I highlight his offensive load here, which was 97th percentile, which is still really high. But it was way lower than what it was the year before. So Lillard coming in, Middleton playing more, did drop the offensive load down. That is just something we want to watch, and I put that in because we're going to compare and contrast it when we look at Damian Lillard as the next player. If you are watching on YouTube, you can go straight across here and see where Lillard's offensive load ranking was. It was 96th. And that was also one of the lowest numbers of Lillard's career. So they're both... So we have the fears about these two high usage guys joining up. It is manifested pretty, relatively accurately, but it's also not a gigantic drop. Now, we can look at Lillard, who's now 34. He played 35 minutes, 73 games. It was by far the worst season of Lillard's career in recent memory. He finished 22nd and -1, 19th on Yahoo rankings, 30th in points. His ADP was 11. I was more than happy to get him in that 11 to 14 range. It was probably wrong, but there was he's like 10 spots behind. It's wrong. The discourse around the season that Lillard had, though, would tell you that he sucked. Oh my God, this guy is killing me. What a terrible, terrible bust. And yeah, the 22nd best player who you pick at pick 12, not the best return on your value there. But it's not a disaster. He still averaged 24, 4, and 7. He hit 3 threes. He had a steal. He shot 92 from the line. What was the problem is he just couldn't hit threes. 35% only, which dropped his field goals down to 42. His 2-point percentage was under 50. And the theory should be, you come in with a player like Giannis around, A, you should bump your assists more, but B, you should be able to be more efficient. And we have seen this time and time again, where we all have this idea, well, look at the attention drawn onto other players, that's going to make all these percentages go up. And I'll say invariably, but that's absolutely not true. But often, it just doesn't happen. The player either stays the same, or they get worse, or sometimes they get better. Not enough for me to suggest there is a clear path to say that that's what we should look at. And we maybe need to be better than that when evaluating players. The best comps for Lillard was year 12 of Chauncey Billups and year 12 of Goran Dragic. That's not super encouraging. Lillard did have a much stronger first half of the season versus the second half, but I thought he did improve quite a bit at the very end of the year. 97th percentile EPM, 94th crafted. Again, there'll be a lot of people who want to tell you how bad Lillard was. Like, bro, if that's bad, I'm okay with it. 97th and 94th, that's still pretty good, yeah. His offensive load went to 96th. Giannis's was 97th. It's a drop still. And they're still figuring out how they play. Now, a lot of times, big name players changing teams have a drop in fantasy production year 1. Year 2, they figure it out a little bit more. Now, I'm a little skeptical of Lillard because he's 34. And we're at the stage where you're 5 years removed from absolute peak. And does the familiarity, new system, and the improvement that comes with that extra familiarity, does it get offset by an age-related decline? Probably. I'm not, at this point, I don't know because I haven't done any of it, but I don't think we're taking Lillard first round. I'm definitely not letting him slip out of the second round, but it is possible that is where we end up. So, look, again, when we look at his numbers, usage was down. We know this. We expected more assists. They didn't come. Middleton played a lot of point guard too. But it was just the shooting. If we're going to say one thing, it's the shooting. And does joining Yanni mean you shoot 35% from 3? No. Does shooting 42% from the field and 49% from 2? Is that because you joined the Bucks? Or is that maybe the age thing? That's where we start to get a little bit more interesting, I think, when assessing where we're at with old mate. What's his name? Damian Lillard. So, let's talk about James. No, it's not. Let's talk Brook Lopez, actually. One of those players who had a very, very up and down season. Lopez is one of the ones that the rankings fluffers will love. He's 36. I'm not banking on 36-year-olds. I'm just sorry to tell you that. I'm just not. He played 79 games. That's great. 2 years ago, he played 5 games or whatever it was. Lopez has had a career that's been wild. This man is always healthy. He's reliable. Oh my God, I cannot draft Brook Lopez because he's always injured. Oh no, he's an old man with back surgery. I'm out. Oh no, Lopez plays every game. We're back in. In the end, who knows? That's the correct answer. You don't know where Lopez will be health-wise. He played 31 minutes a night, which was way more than he has done over the past few years. Definite change in approach from the coaching staff versus the way Budenholzer would handle him. He started out the season horribly. Shooting was off, no block shots. The Griffin system killed him. He came with a massive flurry. He was like a top 15 player for a few weeks. He was blocking everything, and then it leveled off. In the end, his ADP was 70. I had him lower than that. His -1 ranking was 73rd, so he was marginally behind ADP, but he was ahead of where I thought he would be. He was slightly better than I thought. I did not feel comfortable for a new coach putting Lopez in as a 31-minute-a-night player in a scheme which I didn't think would suit 100%, and it didn't, and then they changed it. But Yahoo said that he was the 26th best player, and if you believe that, sorry to tell you, he wasn't. There's just no way. He averaged 12 points with 2 threes and 5 rebounds, 1.6 assists with half a steal and 2.4 blocks. 2.4 blocks is great. It's also worth remembering, I think about 3 years ago, that Lopez was like 1.4 blocks. He's had a big surge in those numbers. He shot 48 from the field and 82 from the line. 48 from the field is slightly below average. The free throws are great. He hit his he hit 3-pointers at 37. I am not touching him top 50. Probably not top 70. Can he sustain 31 minutes a night? I've got my doubts about that. And look, you look at this. All right, points, well below average. Threes, about average. Rebounds, about average. Assists, well below. Steals, well below. Blocks, well above. Field goals, below. Free throws, marginally above. It's driven by blocks, that Yahoo ranking. Go from 2.4 to 1.8. 65th best player on their system at best. Play 65 games, he's 150th. So easy to fall. The best comps for him, Al Horford in year 16, which was last season, and Georgie Johnson in year 12. Cool. Lopez's impact was not as good as it's been in the past. 77th percentile on EPM, 88th on Kraft. And what I found really interesting was his rim frequency. So how often you're contesting shots at the rim. 54th percentile. So is that a red flag? It is a little bit. He's still got 2.4 blocks because his block percentage and his ability to do that was huge. But he's not protecting the rim. He's not contesting shots as often as in the past. Age, scheme, maybe. But it also makes me go, 2.4, probably not something I feel super confident in relying on as we move forward. Let's go to Khris Middleton now, who played 55 games. The year before, Middleton had the wrist problem. Then he had a knee problem crop up. And we heard that he was having some surgery in the offseason. We thought he was ready to go. And then we get back for the beginning of training camp, and Adrian Griffin's giving the biggest non-answers I've ever heard about Middleton. And they just were incredibly slow with A, getting him back to play, and B, ramping his minutes up. Like, he came off the bench for a period of time. He played low minutes for basically all season. And this is a degenerative knee problem that has plagued him since his time in college. It's not the same because I don't have their medicals. Maybe it is the same, but I don't have their medicals. But it gives me the vibes of the reason that Cam Whitmore maybe slid in the draft. Hey, there's a knee problem here with Cam, which really could be a problem at some point, but it'll be fine early on. And Middleton was fine early on. But now, 2 years in a row, basically have been ruined with this knee problem. So, when he played, he only played 27 minutes a night. He's almost 33. But when he played, he wasn't far off. 97th on -1 ranks. His ADP was 82. But again, he played, on average, about 6 fewer minutes than he probably would have. He was 147th on Yahoo. He averaged 15, 4.7, and 5.3 rebounds and assists. Only 0.9 steals. And only 1.7 dribbles. Shot 49 and 83, including 38 on threes and 56 on twos. There's a lot to like there. Let's say we get him up to 33 minutes. That's an extra 6 minutes. That's a quarter of that. Just got a 2 plus 2 is 4 minus 1. That's 3 quick maths. So that gives him about 18 and 2 with 5.5 and 5.7 assists with 1.1 steals. About that. It's pretty good. but I don't want to invest in it. Not wasting any time on it. I'd take him like late, but understand that if I got 65 games and 32 minutes, he smashes. But ongoing knee problem, age 33, no idea if they're going to be incredibly cautious again though. His player comps, year 10 Rick Fox, all right, cool. But year 14 Jim Harden, that's last season's Jim Harden. What? All right, interesting. 91st percentile EPM, 81st on crafted, and his passer rating, which I thought he was quite a good passer, and that's part of the reason that Damian Lillard's assists didn't rise or weren't huge, is that Middleton was a really good passer. And what we did fear with Middleton with the arrival of Lillard, he would lose usage, and he did. That's clear. He averaged 15 points a game in 27 minutes. But he was able to sort of keep some value by improving those passing numbers. Now, Lillard and Giannis being there is going to stop, and has, but it is going to stop it ever happening where Middleton is the 45th best player every single season. He won't be that. He's going to be in this 80 zone, 75s. And I think pretty much when that trade happened, we pushed him down to about 70. But even then, still didn't hit the mark. You got it. Look, the talent is still there. I think he can produce at a permanent level similar to what he's done this season for maybe one more year, given the age and the knee. But the knee's the problem here. And that's where we start to get into some real concerns. Speaking of concerns, Malik Beasley is concerned about getting to the rim. Doesn't know what it is. Never met her. He's 27. He played 30 minutes a game, 79 games overall, 187th in -1, but Yahoo again will tell you he was 108th because he played so many games. Do you care about that for fantasy? Well, you should not at this level, not at all. 199th in points. He's only drafted in 5% of leagues. He had hot streaks, and this is who Malik Beasley is. We know this. Malik Beasley goes on a crazy hot streak where he hits 5 threes a game for 2 weeks, and then he's 1 of 10 for 4 games in a row, and it's all over the shop. And at the end of the year, he did lose a starting spot to Pat Beverly, 37-year-old Pat Beverly. So I don't really know where Beasley goes. It's like all of his problems were magnified, and the shooting, great, like 41% on threes, which I think it was at like, wasn't he going like 46 for the start of the year? He hit 3 threes a game and he's 11 points. But there's nothing else. 0.7 steals, 3.7 rebounds, 71 from the line, 44 overall. A 3-point streaming specialist only. What is interesting is his best comp was the man that he replaced, Grayson Allen, in year 4. And then also Keith Bogans in year 5. That's Orlando Magic Keith Bogans. 63rd percentile EPM, 69th in craft. And I had to put this there because this man is allergic to getting to the rim and taking free throws. 3rd percentile in free throw rate. Now, that's just part of his role. Get the ball and shoot it. And he did. And he does it well. He sucks on defense. He sucks when he's got the ball outside of shooting. He can't do anything else. And that's probably why he's just a minimum guy at this point. We'll see whether he gets anything more. But the shooting's there, but we should not care about Malik Beasley from any sort of real fantasy perspective. And then the man who did take over from Beasley as a starter towards the end of the year is Pat Beverly, who is about to turn 36. He played 73 games in 20 minutes, which is a lot more than I thought he would. 248th in -1 rankings. Cool. He averaged 6, 3, and 3 with 0.6 steals and 0.4 blocks. 82 from the line, 42 from the field, 34 on threes. He had some moments towards the end of the year when he did start and other players were out where he did ramp it up, which is always something to remember. If you see him in a position where other guys are out and he's going to have this a chance, well, the stats did come. But we don't really care about this as we move forward. And like I said, he is also an unrestricted free agent. Does he come back? The best comps for him were Devin Harris year 15. I cannot believe, honestly, that Devin Harris played 15 seasons. And year 12 of Brian Shaw. The impact for Bev was bad. Now, some of it is split between here and Philadelphia, but 53rd percentile and 28th in crafted. And his adjusted defensive turnovers was 87th percentile. So he still does make things happen there. He is not the defender that he claims to be or that he was in the past. He's also one of the more annoying pricks in the league. He's going to cop I think he copped a suspension for throwing the ball at the fan, and then a lot of online grief, as he should, for telling reporters that they can't talk to him unless they subscribe to his podcast. Like, you're a clown. Like, just legitimate dickhead energy consistently from this guy. And I don't think we'd matter too much if he was actually good or good enough in the NBA or good enough for our perspective from a fantasy spot, but he's not. So I don't think we're going to need to talk about him in really any sort of consideration. Just the thing we have to watch is what team does he end up on. And honestly, there's not a lot more that we talk about on this team, except we're going to go through the bench players now, and we do have to talk about Bob Portis because Bob Portis did Bob Portis things. Now, the person that voted Bobby Portis to be in an all-defensive team, I don't know, man. I don't know how you go through life without eyes, but congratulations to you for getting a job and getting a vote in that position because that's amazing. Well done. Portis is 29. He played all 82 games. He played 24 minutes a night. It's the same story nearly always for Bobby Portis. If Brook Lopez is out, if Giannis is out, Portis is going to put up good numbers. When Portis is a 21-minute backup, he doesn't. He finished 125th in -1 rankings. Again, you'll look at the Yahoo rankings and go, boy, Portis, 59th. He's a 5th-round player. Wow, what a steal. I got him to pick 100, a 5th-round player. No, you didn't. He is a reserve player who steps up, who's unrosterable most of the season when he's on the bench. And he was a droppable player as like the 170th ranked player per game until about midway through the season. He did improve. He does a lot of offensive things, but it's always the same thing for Portis. His ADP was 114. He smashed it. If you want to look at Yahoo's rankings, he fell behind it on a per-game basis. 14 points with a 3, 7 rebounds, 0.8 steals, 0.4 blocks, defensive legend. 51 from the field and 79 from the line. They're really efficient numbers, including 41 from 3. He has turned himself into an absolutely elite big man shooter. The problem is he just doesn't do anything else. His comps were year 9 of Marvin Williams, who, shout out, if you don't remember Marvin Williams, his middle name is Gay, so it's Marvin Gay Williams, unbelievable. And then year 5 of Terry Mills. Portis, 49th percentile EPM, 44th in crafted. They're really horrible numbers. For a guy that's considered as good as he is, a guy that people wanted to win 6th man of the year, that's horrid. He's crafted defensive plus minus 18th percentile. He is terrible on that end. Yes, he points and rebounds. Yes, he shoots well. Yes, he steps up when he's needed. But he still creates significant problems because of his inability to defend and the fact that he needs the ball in certain situations. He's 29 now, so we're starting to hit downside, or we will start to hit downside of Bobby Portis' career. And in the end, unless we know there's injuries to Giannis or Lopez, I'm not sure that he's a particularly strong draft pick in fantasy leagues. I'm slightly biased against Bobby Portis, mainly because I think he gets overhyped, and that's usually where some of my biases come in. But he needs somebody out to be useful. And when that somebody is out, he's really good. And the way that standard leagues are set up is you cannot handcuff most of the time. I want to change that, but that doesn't matter. Like if I can change that in my leagues, that's cool. In the leagues that I run, we have the ability to stash and handcuff, and then Portis becomes more valuable. In a league where it is a standard setting, which I talked to Dan Besbris about this on his show 2 weeks ago. I said, look, in reality, a standard league doesn't have a bench. You don't have a bench. Every one of your players is an active player. So there's no bench. So we need to stop talking about it like it's a bench because it isn't. Out of the 180 days in an NBA season or whatever it is, 160, the amount of times you actually use that bench as a bench, 20, maybe? It's not a bench. So that makes it harder, I think, with Portis. Let's talk about Pat Connaughton, who Glenn Rivers decided was going to play at point guard at times because he's not young, so that means he's good, according to Doc. If you can't be a rookie, you can't have any sort of youth on your side to play. Connaughton's 31. He played 76 games in 22 minutes. He had some injuries early in the season a little bit, but played through most of it. 286 in -1, 5 points, 3 rebounds, the 2 assists. Now, to be fair, his passing was better than I thought it would be. 35 on 3s, 63 on 2s, but he's nothing. He's a nothing player. His best comps were old baby neck Wilson Chandler in year 8 and Francisco Garcia, year 9. The impact that Connaughton had is like terrible. 15th percentile EPM, 37th on CPM. Now, what I was impressed with was the passing, 84th percentile passer rating. You're going to see this a lot with these guys is the split between the high-end Bucks players and the depth and bench. Like all the bench guys, it's basically like anytime they touch the court, they set it on fire in a bad way. Maybe Doc was right not to play them. Although maybe he should have used that when looking at Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton thinking, hey, maybe they're not that good either. Connaughton's never going to be an interesting fantasy player. Even in situations when he starts, I usually just don't want to use him because there's no upside in it. And I reckon we've had that proven out over many, many seasons. Now, I'm going to give more attention to the young players than Doc Rivers has ever given at any point in his career. So let's talk about MarJon Beauchamp. And to be honest, maybe I shouldn't give MarJon Beauchamp any attention. 2 years in, out of G League Ignite, first round pick. He stinks, I think. I watched him play in Summer League, not both seasons, but last season, because I wasn't there the year before. And I watched him in a situation where he was a year 2 player coming in, and I went, Does bro know what he's doing? He looks terrible. This is bad. You're a second-year player. You need to kill these guys. And he looked terrible. And that was a huge red flag. It's always a red flag to me in that scenario. It's not the death knell. It doesn't mean that it's over, but yeah, it's pretty close. 427th for him. There was a clear opportunity for minutes on this squad. Clearly. They didn't have that backup guard player. And he just couldn't get it done. 4 points. Shot 40% on threes. Yeah. Didn't take that many of them. Only played 13 minutes a game in 48 games. 0.6 assists in third. Well, let's double. Let's do the double game. 13 minutes a game. Let's go to 26, which is a reasonable backup hybrid starter. That's probably absolute best case for Beauchamp. 8.8 points. Oh, no. 4 rebounds. 1.2 threes. 1.2 assists. 0.6 steals. These are horrendous numbers. Look, his comps are surely better. Oh, no. It's Kevin Knox in year 5. It's Aaron Wiggins year 1. That's actually a good one. What about the impact? Well, 13th percentile EPM, 5th percentile CPM. Couldn't be worse almost. Well, you could, but it's not easy to do. His box creation, like that's the level you're involved offensively. In terms of setting things up for your teammates. Can't pass either. Not really a point guard. It's 22nd percentile. Doesn't have any of that ability. I would be very, very inclined to consider declining a 4th-year rookie option for him this coming off season. Doc's not going to play him. The defense is what he should be good at. I'm not sure he is. And then offensively, he's got nothing to hang his hat on at all. And speaking of not having anything to hang your hat on offensively, Andre Jackson Jr. came out of Connecticut. I haven't even touched on this, but what the hell's going on with the Lakers coaching search with all of a sudden Woj top roping the Dan Hurley news? I don't know what's going to happen there, but does this? It shouldn't, but maybe it should. Does the Andre Jackson, who was awesome in college for Connecticut, does it put a dampener on? Less so Donovan Clingan, but Tristan Newton or Cam Spencer. In terms of, there's another guy that I can't think of off the top of my head, but in terms of the value they bring coming out of Connecticut, maybe. He's only 22, Andre. Again, they drafted an older rookie because you know what? NBA ready. They're not. 57 games, 10 minutes a game only. I thought he started to look pretty good early on, and then Doc came in and Doc said, young, I tell you, what nothing to do with you. Unless it's, of course, liking porn tweets. Then the younger, the better. 2 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 0.3 steals. Now, we can triple his numbers to get him to 30 minutes. That's 6 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 steal. Not particularly mind-blowing. The efficiency stuff looks fine. 61 on 2s, 37 on 3s, but he never takes any shots. And as I was watching Marjon Beauchamp at Summer League, I watched Andre Jackson. I went, how is this man ever going to score? I watched him offensive. You cannot score. He's very athletic. He can get up for some really big lobs. But the man averaged 2 points a game. And it wasn't because he was inefficient. 2 points. The best comps for him were year 2 of Sterling Brown, Bucks legend, and year 1 of John Selmans. Remember that bloke? His EPM was 7th percentile. That's terrible. Crafted was 24th percentile. And his shooting ability, shot quality was 37th percentile. He's lucky to be there. I still think he's got the really strong intangibles. There is maybe some passing upside. The athleticism is fine. The defense is good. I would have liked to see more out of him, just from a development standpoint and the ability to defend, which they sorely needed. But overall, my faith in Andre Jackson as an NBA starter, star, contributor, however you want to say it, not particularly. I'm not particularly rosy on his future, and that's part of why this team's annoying. You get to the bench and there's Bobby Portis there, and then Pat Beverly's the next guy, and it's Beverly and it's Connaughton and it's Crowder, who I didn't even talk about here, or it's bloody Robin Lopez, who they traded away, or it's the Narcissus, or it's AJ Green. Maybe I should have talked about AJ Green. There's just a lot of things that I don't think are really going to change. Now, there could be some reckonings. What happens if Beasley leaves? What happens if Beverly's gone? Crowder's gone? What happens the next season if all these unrestricted guys aren't going to hang around? It is something that is really intriguing. It'd be very intriguing for you to hit a thumb and a bell on the YouTube video. Drop your comments down below on it also. Guys, we are done here. Draft Big Board Show. get ripped apart by a draft analyst next time out. I think that's my next show. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.